We're going to start at 10:10 today. Sorry for being a little late. This is just helps us to do this in one piece, and hopefully we will continue to be on air without any problems. So again, this is Anthony Cirillo. We're at Sage Stream. We are broadcasting live on the National Association of Activity Professionals Facebook page, as well as to our Vimeo channel. And this is our, sixth performance out of 16, brought to you by Rotary and the National Association of Activity Professionals and Sage Stream. And so we are welcoming today Gloria Hoffner. Let me bring her in here. There we go. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Anthony.
You know, technology, this is what happens when you insist
Yeah.
on wanting to go live. And I've insisted I want to go live because I like the interaction. If this happens again, folks, just stay tuned. We'll just resume like we can. And I have some troubleshooting to do on the Sage Stream side. But welcome, Gloria Hoffner. Gloria, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and also tell them our backstory.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you from chilly Pennsylvania, where it's 32 degrees this morning, even though it's March, even though it's spring. So my background is that I began my working life as a journalist. I was a newspaper reporter for over 30 years. For those of you who remember what a newspaper is. So then in 2007, I left that and I started my own business, Science for Seniors, because I've always loved science and love seniors. So I did the first one to commemorate the anniversary of Sputnik, and it was a hit, and I kept going, and it's been 32 states, 17 years, 4 books, 5 columns later. I'm here today. And how I met Anthony was doing a health column for, was it about.com then? Because it changed names a few times.
That came way after. Maybe the Charlotte Business Journal.
What was the first one?
Yeah.
So he was looking for a writer to write columns on activities, and I answered his response, and we met in Philadelphia, and I guess that was around 2008, before COVID anyway. We've been friends ever since, and he invited me to do this.
That's right. We actually met when I was still in hospital work, I think, and I remember meeting at a Panera's in Delaware County.
Yep.
And
Yep.
speaking to you because you were in a career transition, and I had been more just entertaining in these senior communities, more or less. So you wanted some advice that way, and that's where it all started. Yep. So listen, I'm going to give you the stage. Again, folks, if anything happens, hang in there. We'll come back. We'll try to diagnose what keeps happening on this end. But Gloria, as soon as you hear the clapping, the stage is yours. You can go till maybe the top of the hour now, and then I'll come back.
Okay. Be great. So again, good morning, everybody. My name's Gloria Hoffner. We're going to talk about science. Sometimes people think, oh, science is scary. Science is not scary. Science is how things work. It's that simple. So we're going to talk about today is the ocean. Okay. Now, I live within a 2-hour or so drive of the ocean, 2 or 3 hours, but everybody's familiar with the ocean. So the truth about the ocean is so large that if you were to grab a globe in your hands, it's impossible to pick up that globe without touching the ocean. We should really be called ocean instead of Earth. It covers over 70% of the surface of our planet. But I bet you were wondering this over breakfast this morning. Where the heck did the water come from? So here's the answer for that. The truth of the matter is, when the Earth begins, none of you were around to see that. It's almost 5 billion years ago. It's super hot. Okay, rocks slamming together, super hot. And floating around in the universe, even today, are comets. And comets are like frozen snowballs in space. So what they believe is that the early Earth was struck by comets, and just like if you put a snowball on a hot stove, a comet on a hot Earth melted and brought the water to the Earth. They actually sent a probe out into space called Stardust, That probe measured the water coming off of the comet as it moves around the sun, and the water coming off that comet was the exact same water you brush your teeth with. So from now on you could say my hair is soft and shiny because I shower in water from outer space. Now there's a very recent study that said some of it might have come from meteorites or asteroid, which are large chunks of rock sometimes covered with water, and a little tiny bit from the volcanoes going off. But they think most of it came from comets. Now when you go to the ocean, if you go out for the day and you forget something to drink, don't let somebody grab you by the ankles and drink out of the ocean, because the ocean is salt water. Okay? It's so much salt, so much, that if you decided, I need a project to do this summer, I'm looking for something to do, I think I'll remove the salt from all the world's oceans so I could drink ocean water. Once you were able to do that, you'd have so much salt it would actually cover the land 5 feet deep. Now, don't be drinking ocean water. Your body needs salt, but too much salt will kill you. They actually even suggest if you're stuck in the middle of the ocean without water, you should lick the sweat off your body before you drink the water out of the ocean. Try not to do that without a cell phone. Okay? All right, but why is the ocean salty? Well, that's because every time it rains, okay, the water washes over the land and runs downhill into the lowest portions of the planet, which are the oceans. So over time, that water running over the land picks up salt and deposits it in the ocean. So 4 billion years ago, you might have been able to drink ocean water. There weren't any people around, but that was probably the content of the ocean. The ocean continues to get saltier every single day. Now, the ocean is not only most of the surface of the planet, source of water. The ocean is where most of the life on the planet is. The largest forest, the largest concentration of all life is in the ocean. And the ocean is also where they believe life began on the planet. Now you're going to say, how do they know that? All right, they know that by fossil records. So I'm going to show you some fossils. So here's one. Get this right. All right. So this is a fossil, okay, of a shell. You can see how it looks like a shell, right? Get better at this camera thing. So this fossil of a shell, all right, what happens is everything in the cemetery is not a fossil. The right mixture of water and minerals, over time the minerals replace the organic material and form into the same shape. And because every living thing on our planet, everything on our planet, is carbon-based, every living item. That means that in the decay, you can tell how much carbon remains, and that gives you a carbon date. And the carbon date allows them to tell how long something's been around. Now this fossil, okay, this is what the bottom of the ocean looked like 100 million years ago. Okay? So again, you can see little tiny shells in this, and by seeing the little tiny shells, you can see what it used to look like. Then you carbon date it, and you realize that's how long life has been in the ocean. Now, when they say that our planet is teeming with life, you probably heard that expression, the truth of the matter is there is so much life on our planet that if you were to take a yellow Post-it note and write the name of every life form on the planet, from the tiniest microbe to the largest creature on the planet, and stack all those up, that would extend 4 miles from the surface of the Earth into the atmosphere. The Earth is teeming with life, most of it in the ocean. Now, the ocean is vast. The ocean is also deep. If you said, I'm a really good swimmer, I think I'll swim to the bottom of the ocean. Well, make sure you really work out, because in order to swim to the bottom of the ocean, you'd have to swim 6.8 miles to the deepest part of the ocean. 6.8 miles down. When you get to the very bottom of the ocean, the pressure on you, pushing down from water and atmosphere, is equal to a person holding 2 jumbo jets over your head. Make sure you have a lot of muscles. For these reasons, very few vehicles have actually been to the very, very bottom of the ocean. Okay? When they have been to the very bottom of the ocean, what they've discovered is that there's life all the way at the bottom of the ocean. And most of the volcanoes on our planet are at the bottom of the ocean. This is a sample of volcanic rock. Okay, get it up close. Now, the largest volcano on our entire planet is actually in the Pacific Ocean. And this is a sample. And down there at the bottom of the ocean, pouring out of that volcano that's the size of the city of Phoenix, there's actually life. Even though it's superheated water and poisonous gases coming out, there's life, microbes, and larger creatures. The creatures that are down that deep in the ocean, two things. They're translucent, so think like jellyfish, okay, because of the pressure on top of them. And they're also bioluminescent, think like fireflies. They have to generate their own light because below 2 miles in the ocean, there is no sunlight reaching the ocean floor. 2 miles, after 2 miles, sunlight can't reach down. They're in total darkness. So the creatures actually light themselves up. Now, that gives scientists hope that there could be life on other planets because life can exist on such extreme conditions in the ocean on this planet. We actually know more about Pluto than we know about the bottom of the ocean, or the ocean in general. It's just so vast. Sadly, the Malaysian airplane that crashed 9 years ago, they spent 3 years searching the ocean, the Indian Ocean, which is one of the smaller oceans, for debris. They found very little, and they didn't even completely end up mapping the Indian Ocean. It's just too vast. So in this very large ocean, okay, where life began, is a variety of life. People like to say, oh, women, we'll let you men in on this. Women sometimes say to a girl who a guy dumped her, they'll say, that's all right, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Okay. How that's helped her get over Joe, I'm not sure. But the truth of the matter is, there are plenty of fish in the sea. There's over 36,000 species of fish, and we still haven't named them all. But everything in the ocean is not a fish. Now, if you were wondering, there's this new person who moved into our community and she really likes seafood and she said she was an Olympic swimmer, maybe she's a fish. How would you know if someone was a fish? Okay? All right. Here's how you're going to know. Number 1, all fish have bones. Okay? So if you have bones, that's one state that you might be a fish. Number 2, all fish have gills. Okay? You don't see any gills protruding out of this person? Not a fish. And the tiebreaker is, number 3, all fish have a fish bladder. It's what enables them to float. So even if you're a great swimmer, if you don't have a fish bladder, you're not a fish. Now sometimes people say, well, fish because fish can't breathe. They can only take in water. Here's the truth. Fish take oxygen out of the water the way we take oxygen out of the air. So the reason that a fish can't survive in the atmosphere, if you take it out of the water and put it on the dock, is not because there's no oxygen you're breathing, it's because they can't process it. And if we stuck your head in a bucket of water and left you there till lunchtime, it's not because there's no oxygen in the water. It's because you can't process it. Now, here's a little sample fish for you. This is a cowfish. Okay? It's real, it's preserved. The eyes are not real. It swims off the coast of South Africa. The reason it's called a cowfish is ancient mariners, up here on the top, are horns on a male. This is a female. And they thought it looked like a bull. So therefore it was a cowfish. One of the fastest waters. So here's the thing when you're a fish. Big things in the ocean eat little things. So when you're a fish, you either swim together in a school with a bunch of other fishes, or you hide in the grasses and the coral and the reefs. When you hide, or you have a defense mechanism. So here's one with a defense mechanism. This is another preserved fish, obviously not the string. This is a puffer fish, sometimes people say a blowfish. And you'll see on this, to keep going the opposite way, you'll see right on here all those little dots. See those little dots? Now, This is how the fish looks swimming around, okay? Just this big. That's the whole size. And along comes a predator. And when the predator comes along, that fish turns itself into this. See all those big spikes? These little tiny dots, those little dots become these big spikes. Okay? It's its defense mechanism. Because who would want a mouthful of this? Right? So that's the story of a pufferfish. Now, they're actually edible, but before you catch one and throw it on the barbecue, they have a poison inside their body. You need to remove the poison sac before you eat them. Otherwise, no one's going to ever invite you back to a barbecue again. So fish swim together in schools, hide in reefs, hide in coral. So there's a lot of fish in the sea. But there's creatures that are not fish. Dun 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 dun. If you've seen the movie Jaws, this is an actual black fin shark jaw. Okay? So sharks are not fish. Okay? Because sharks have no bones in their body. This jaw and all the things that you think feel like a bone in a shark, they're actually made from the same things in your ears and your nose. Okay? There's no bones in a shark. Sharks have no gills. They have slits on the side of their body that allows the oxygen to pass over them, and that's how water to pass over, and they extract the oxygen. And sharks do not have a fish bladder. Instead, sharks have so much oil in their liver that enables them to float. Sharks are one of the few creatures on the planet that don't get cancer. And scientists are studying that liver oil because they think maybe that's the reason why. They're looking at it. Now, in this big jaw, okay, you see all their teeth. Right? They have rows of teeth. This is one fossilized tooth of a great white, to give you a size idea. See how big that is? Now, sharks come in different sizes. Okay? Sharks can be as small as a 6-inch dwarf shark, and they can be as large as 90 feet. 90 feet is the length of 3 school buses end to end. Okay? There are over 230 varieties of sharks, and sharks have been on our planet 550 million years. Now, sharks are cold-blooded creatures, like snakes, like lizards. That means they have to warm up their body by the outside temperature. So sharks only swim in warm waters. If you want to swim where there'll never be a shark, go to the North and South Pole. Way too cold for the sharks. They get a bad reputation from that movie Jaws, as if they're swimming around the world trying to eat Richard Dreyfuss. But the truth of the matter is, on our entire planet, annually, less than 10 people on the whole planet are attacked by a shark. And of that, maybe 3 killed by a shark. In contrast, we humans are killing thousands of sharks. We kill them because they're tangled up in tuna nets, okay, because they're trying to eat tuna. We used to kill Arctic sharks in order to feed them Greenland Arctic sharks, feed them to sled dogs. Okay? You can buy mako shark in the fish store. So we're killing more sharks than they're killing us. And sharks are very special creatures. First of all, sharks are able to smell in stereo. Each nostril works separately. Sharks can smell 1 drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. This is an epileptic shark. Okay? Like I said, they come in all sizes. Sharks can swim in total dark water on a straight line and never get lost. That's because sharks have the ability to read the magnetic field of the earth and follow it like their own GPS. Right? Sharks also have the ability to pick up the electric signal in a single fish. What sharks can't do very well, they don't see very well. So that when fish swim together in a big group, a school, they look like a large object to a shark. That's why they do it. The shark will circle around and around trying to knock one loose to pick up a single signal and tune in on them. Now, if there's any single ladies in the audience, my advice to you is Don't date a shark. Because all male sharks are one-night stands. When they're interested in a female shark, they bite the fin on her back, they drag her down in the water, they have their way with her, and she'll never see him again. They're all one-night stands. On the other hand, female sharks are never going to be mother of the year. Most sharks lay eggs. Some sharks contain the eggs in an egg sac in their body and release them right before birth. In every case, the female shark deposits the eggs or the egg sac and swims off. There's never been a female shark who baked 30 cupcakes for the second grade Valentine's party. There's never been a female shark who took her daughter dress shopping at 20 places for the right prom dress. They're not very good mothers. They're solitary creatures. Now, on the other hand, they do some remarkable things. This shark, is amazing in what it could do. It lives in tide pools off Australia, and when it's low tide, this shark will actually come out of a tide pool, cross the sand on its flippers, and re-enter the deeper ocean. And the scientists were like, how the heck can it do that? It turns out what it's doing, it shuts down the organs it's not using and turns them back on when it re-enters the deeper water. That would be like all of us saying, we'll turn off our lungs, go for a swim, and turn them back on. We can't do that, but this shark can. Okay? Not every shark, but this shark can. So, you're never ever going to be at the dentist waiting for a shark. Like I showed you, sharks have row of teeth. Here's one tooth of a great white. The great white in that movie Jaws is about 30 feet long. That's about a bus. This tooth is because when sharks mate, the female shark knocks loose a few teeth. They lose teeth constantly, so the ocean floor has plenty of shark's teeth. But as soon as one tooth falls out, a new tooth grows in. They keep growing teeth their whole life. That's very different from the next creature we're going to talk about. And that would be the largest creatures on the planet are whales. Here's my little model of an orca whale. Now, whales are not fish, again, because in this case, whales are mammals like us. To be a mammal, you need to breathe air, which they do. Female mammals give birth to their young, live birth, and they produce milk, which they do. And number 3, all mammals have hair. That's about the time people say to me, I've never seen a hairy whale. Well, these little tiny bumps you see on the top of this model, those are hair follicles. You only need one single hair to be a mammal. That's why Telesavalis was a mammal, not a fish. Just kidding. Other reasons too. So whales, they've been on the earth a lesser time than sharks. They've been on the earth about 230 million years. Okay? And there's a theory, hasn't been proven yet, that maybe whales started out as land creatures and then moved into the ocean. Now, that could be because in the very beginning of the earth, it was one giant continent surrounded by water. Ocean means all water, surrounding water. As the continents broke up, maybe the whales were forced into the ocean due to their size. It hasn't been proven yet. If you want to go for the Nobel Prize, work on that. Pretty good deal. Pays almost $1 million, a nice luncheon, and a nice medal. And one of the clues in the whales is in their flippers. If you see the skeleton of their flipper, there's actually finger bones underneath those flippers. So maybe they were land creatures. Now, whales, there's a lot of different whales. The largest creature on our entire planet is a blue whale. A blue whale is the length of 3 school buses, 90 feet. It has a heart the size of a truck, an SUV truck, and it has a tongue heavier than an elephant. But most whales have no teeth. They take in huge quantities of water, they strain it for tiny krill, and they release the water. A few whales have teeth. I'm going to show you some examples of those. This is an orca whale tooth. So orcas are the ones they call killer whales, the black and white whales. This is one tooth. You see how big it is in my hand. One tooth of an orca. On the other hand, this is a sperm whale tooth. This is a model. One tooth of a sperm whale. Okay? See how big it is in my hands? That's how big it is. Now, in the case of the sperm whales and the killer whales, they don't grow new teeth. Because whales are warm-blooded and have to breathe oxygen, whales swim all around the planet. If the whale surfaces under the ice of the North or South Pole, sometimes it'll use its teeth to gnaw through the ice to get up to breathe. That's very bad because whales need their teeth, toothed whales need their teeth to hold prey and to chew prey. And a whale that wears down its teeth, it'll die because it won't be able to eat any longer. Now, you could eat whale meat, but it's now illegal to eat whale meat in the United States because as a planet we almost hunted whales to extinction. So they're now a protected species. There was a time when whales were hunted for their meat, for their skin, for their bone. Women's corsets were made from whale bone. And in the case of sperm whales, in the 1700s, when people still used coal oil for lamps for lighting, that coal oil would burn out in less than an hour and make a smoky mess. They discovered that the oil inside the head of a sperm whale would burn for hours and burn cleaner. So they would kill the whale, take the meat, the skin, the bone, and then they would cut a hole in the head of the whale, and if you wanted a good paying job, at 16 cents an hour, they'd lower you into the head of the whale with a bucket for you to pull out as much oil as possible. Don't worry, it's no longer a summertime job. Like I said, they're protected. The exception in America to hunting whales are the Inuits, who we used to say Eskimo. They are allowed to kill one whale a year with traditional hunting methods, which means wooden boats and spears, and then they use every bit of the whale. Whales communicate with each other. They create a song in the spring. They live together in a pod, a group of whales, where they raise their young. So they're social creatures. And that pod sends a message to other pods around the planet. Once that sound circles the planet, they create a new song every year. We have no idea what they're saying. Dolphins and porpoises are families of toothed whales. And they had an interesting discovery. They brought an injured dolphin into a research lab where there were other dolphins recovering. And when the new dolphin was introduced to the pool of dolphins, the new dolphin went around to each dolphin in the pool and said, "Iki-oo, ika-wa, ika." And the scientists observing thought, it's almost like the dolphin said, "Hi Sue, hi Joe, hi Mary." That can't be right. Every time he mixed them up, the dolphins used the same sound to signal to the matching one. They knew, this is Sue, this is Joe, this is... Again, we don't know what they're saying, but they might all look alike to us. We probably all look alike to them. They're obviously communicating with each other. On a scale of intelligence, I know you all love your dogs. I love my beagles. Dolphins are way above beagles. Way above even border collies, the smartest dogs. Dolphins are right up there, just below apes in intelligence, and they do that by communication and by testing them for their ability to solve a problem. They're smarter than we think. All right. Now, in the ocean next up, there's big creatures, like I said, largest creature. Then there's little tiny creatures. So here we have two seahorses. Okay? Now, seahorses are the smallest, most delicate creatures in the ocean. You'll see this one has a little curled tail to it. So they're so delicate, they have to hold on to plants in the ocean to keep from being swept away by the currents. Now, if any of you ladies are married and have children, and you ever wondered if your husband was a seahorse, here's how to tell. In seahorses, the female generates the eggs, okay? But the male gives birth. The eggs are transferred from the female to the male, and the male gives birth. So if your husbands didn't give birth, they're not seahorses. And Carol Burnett has jokingly said, if men want to understand the pain of childbirth, they should take their lower lip, pull it completely over their body, and they'll be a third of the way there. All right, little creatures. Then there's something we call fish. We say a starfish, but they're not fish either. This is actually a sea star. Okay? So this is a sunburst. Got some others. This is a white. Okay? And people love this one. This is a sunflower. Like that. Now, they're not fish because they don't have bones, etc. But where are the eyes on this creature? Okay? What do you think? Here they are. Where's their eyes? Actually, their eyes are on the tip of each foot. And scientifically, they're called sea stars, not starfish. So their eyes are on the tip of each foot. Their mouth is right here in the center, their mouth and their waist. Their feet move independently in the water, and these filters in here move the food down into the creature. A long time ago, scientists used to think creatures with multiple eyes, like these, or like a fly with multifaceted eyes, must see multiple images. They no longer think that. Because think of it this way. If this creature saw 5 images, how would it know where the heck it was going? It'd be stumbling around in the ocean. Okay? That's a big problem. That's not how it works. Everybody watching has 2 eyes, but you only see one of me, unless you're having a computer problem. That's because your brain takes the images from both eyes, puts it together as one signal to your brain. And in creatures with multiple eyes, their brain takes that image from multiple eyes and puts it together and gives them one signal, so they know exactly where they're going. Now, sea stars, sometimes you'll see them sitting on rocks. That's because, like this little ball, under a microscope, they have tiny little suckers, and the suckers enable them to stick to the shores, to the rocks of the shores. I already said you can eat shark, you can eat fish, you can eat whale, if it was allowed, you can eat whale. Can you eat a starfish? I found out in a strange way. I came home from work one day, and my crazy beagle, a rescue beagle, he had been abused. He ate everything. He ate soap, he ate toothpaste, and he ate all but 1 inch of a starfish. I called the vet. The vet said in 40 years I never had a dog that did that. Call Animal Poison Control. I called Animal Poison Control, and they said, we're not federally funded. If you want to know, it'll cost you $20. I gave them my visa, and this is exactly what happened. I said, my dog ate a starfish. I need to know if it's poisonous. And the woman said to me, it's not poisonous for your dog, but it's bad for a starfish to be eaten alive. So it turns out that most of the time they get calls from people who say, the dog ran in the water, like in Florida where it's warm, and started gobbling up a starfish. And I've saved you $20. It's bad to be eaten alive. But the truth is, the sea stars, starfish that you see in the shops, they're actually live. They take them out of salt water, they put them in fresh water, they die in fresh water, and they dry them out. So if you're really hungry, I'm not sure how this would taste, but you could definitely eat a starfish. Just not sure how that taste is going to turn out. Now, the other thing people love about the ocean are the seashells. So I've got a couple of conch shells. Okay, see this one? And this one. Now, they're about the same shape. Okay? Yeah, this one's pointier. But the main difference in them is not only the size, okay, but the fact that if you see inside this one, you see the pink color in this one, and you don't see any color in the other one. This is from North Atlantic waters. This one is from the Bahamas. The colder the water, the duller the shell. The warmer the water, the brighter the shell. It's for the same reason that tropical fish are blue and yellow and pink, and fish off North Atlantic waters are brown, dull. Where it's cold, the fish are dull. Now, shells are the exoskeleton of the creature that lives in them. That means that unlike people, where your skeleton is under your skin and your muscles, in this case, the creature that lives in here is like a snail, a soft creature like a snail. And this shell is its skeleton protecting it. Because even though we think of our skeleton as walking around, the main purpose of our skeleton is protection. Your skull protects your soft brain, and your rib cage protects your heart and your lungs. That's why football players really shouldn't slam them into each other, but that's a different problem. This giant shell is created by the creature. Okay? Now, when they're born, they are a miniature of this. I mean a miniature, 1/16 of an inch. And they're in a shell sac. See this big sac? That'll have several hundred tiny baby conch in it, miniature conch. They hatch and they start excreting a material, and that material starts at the point and grows the rest of the shell. The age of the shell is based on the lines in the shell. Okay? And yes, once again, you can eat conch. The truth is, if you're in the Bahamas, you can sit and watch them put out nets and pull up a net full of conch. They pull out the conch creature from the shell. You can eat conch raw, you can eat conch fried, conch salads. Okay? So you can. Now, you might be wondering, when I go to those seashell shops, there's lots of shells. Where do they get all those shells from? Because when I walk on the beach, I don't see that many shells. Well, here's a shell from Southeast Asia. The truth of the matter is, 40% of the world's population get their protein from the ocean. In the United States, our protein comes basically from meats, number one being chicken, and then beef, and then pork, and then finally fish. But for most of the planet, fish are up there in shells. So literally, they eat the creatures out of the shell, rinse the shell off, and sell them back to us. You could do that with pork chop bones tonight, but see, this looks better on your coffee table. Now, the other thing is, sometimes people see the holes in the shells, and they say, oh, I guess the water did that. That's not necessarily true. In this case, sea stars, remember I said big things eat little things, they will put their body over a shell, extend out their stomach, crack a hole in the shell, and suck out the creature. That's how the hole gets in the shell. Now, why so many holes? Well, the creature doesn't stay in one place hoping to be eaten. So they're moving, and these creatures methodically, like a woodpecker going around a tree methodically, they methodically move across the shell until they find the place and suck out the creature. That's how it works. Scientists used to wonder, why are they doing that in a row? Why not just random? Because you have a better chance of eating if you methodically go in a row than if you jump all over the place. Remember, humans are the last species on the planet. Every other creature's learned a lot of things. Now, I started off with fossils. I want to show you another fossil. This is this creature, okay, 360 million years ago. See how they look alike? This fossil was found on a mountaintop in Peru. This is the polished inside. This is what it looked like when they found it sitting on the mountaintop. And it resembles this. Now the question is, that they had at the time, how did this, which is obviously a sea creature, end up on the top of a mountain in Peru? That's because it's not till the middle of the 20th century that we realize that the continents move. We now know that the continents move, and fact is, while we're sitting here today, the Atlantic Ocean is growing by about an inch a year, and that means the Pacific, which is right now the largest ocean in the world, so large you could almost put every other ocean into it, is shrinking, closing up. It's what's causing the earthquakes. Now, as a result of that, okay, that means that in the past, the continents were different shapes, and a lot of the continents were underwater. So another example of that is the Great Salt Lake in Utah and the Dead Sea in Israel. They're both the remains of ancient oceans, that as the continents moved and the ocean was trapped, evaporation took over, and the water eventually is drying up, leaving behind just the salt. If you wait about 200,000 years, they think the Mediterranean will be the new Dead Sea. And in that same time, the Pacific Ocean will have closed up so much smaller that it'll be possible to take a ferry from Los Angeles to Japan. But it's a long wait, a long wait. So that is how this fossil ended up on a mountaintop, because that mountain used to be underwater. If you've ever visited the Grand Canyon in the United States, the Grand Canyon along its walls has seashells embedded in the sides of the canyon. The Grand Canyon itself has been underwater 7 times. 7 times. Trying to get my hands up here right. Now, so fossils can tell us things about the ocean. I have another fossil for you. Okay, this is coral. Right? This is coral actually from Costa Rica. Okay? And this is fossilized coral. Another mystery. Coral, right? Coral has to survive. It's tiny microscopic creatures. Coral survives in warm water and in shallow water, not deeper than 20 feet. Okay? And for years, people used to go snorkeling and break off coral and stick it in aquariums, etc. This is old coral from the 1960s when they used to do that. The truth of the matter is, we didn't realize at the time that coral is an extremely valuable part of the ocean. Coral is a place where fish and other creatures lay eggs, lemon sharks. It's a place for them to hide. It's a place for the forest. It's a place. So when you eliminate the coral, you're damaging the whole ocean. And sadly, human beings have done a lot of that. We've done so much damage to coral in Florida that there's actual whole sections that are black. They're black from fertilizer runoff into the ocean. They're damaged by the propellers of boats breaking into them. They're damaged by people snapping off pieces of them. Big problem. In Australia is the largest creature-made object in the world. That's the Great Australia Reef. And they're going to spend over $1 billion attempting to repair the reef. There are whole sections of coral reef in Mexico that are off limits to boats to try and preserve and save the coral. There's actually a scientist in Florida who's trying to grow coral in a lab, and he's using retired Navy SEALs to replace coral with, try to take the growing coral from the lab, attach it to the coral that's damaged in the ocean, and see if he can repair sections of coral. And he's using those retired Navy SEALs to help him do that work. Because the ocean is a valuable asset for the whole planet, and the coral reef is a valuable asset for the ocean. So this third fossil I showed you here is coral. Okay? Now, it's little tiny bits of microscopic coral. You can see little circles on it if you get up really close. But it was found in 40 feet of water off the coast of Florida. So then the mystery was, if coral can't survive at that depth, how could there have been coral there? That gives us an answer to the last ice age. The Earth has had 5 ice ages. The last one was about 40,000 years ago, so I'm not surprised you don't remember it. At that time, the ice covered the Earth down to about midsection of the United States. Okay? There's only so much water on the planet. They're not making new water. The part of the miracle of the planet is every second of every day, the water evaporates, goes into clouds, returns to the Earth as rain. That cycle can be repeated in as short as 8 hours a day. So at the time of that ice age, though, the water was evaporated from the ocean, pulled up into the clouds, and returned to the Earth as snow and ice. And that ice built up and up. That meant that the ocean was more shallow. That meant that probably Florida was 3 times as wide as it is today. And in that case, the water was warm enough and the coral was close enough to the edge that the coral lived on the border of the Ice Age Florida. So see, fossils can tell us a lot about the history of the planet. And the ocean tells us a lot about the history of the planet. Now, in addition to lives of the planet, okay, the ocean is very important for, number one, the ocean is one of 3 sources of the weather of the planet. Okay? Weather is a combination of water, atmosphere, and sun. Okay? And sadly, as we melt the ice at the poles and on mountaintops and raise the level of the ocean, it also raises the temperature of the ocean. When you raise the temperature of the water in the ocean, you increase the strength of hurricanes and you increase drought and flash floods. Because it turns out the clouds start to hold on to water longer, which means longer time between rainfalls is drought, and when the rain finally does fall, causes flash floodings because the ground is so hard. So the ocean is a source of our weather. Okay? In addition to that, 80% of the goods that you buy in the store come via the ocean, via cargo ships. In the United States, one simple example is if you like coffee in the morning, you go to Starbucks or wherever you go for your coffee, you get your little sugar packet, dump it in. To reach you, on average in the United States, that tropical plant sugar has traveled 1,500 miles from where it's grown to where it's processed to where it's shipped to where it lands in your hand. And most of that journey was on the ocean to the country to process it. So the ocean is a source of transportation. The ocean has products that you probably don't think about. When you get up and brush your teeth every morning, inside toothpaste is kelp. Kelp is a plant that grows in the ocean. It's one of the fastest growing plants on the planet. It's even been considered as an alternative for gasoline because it would be cleaner. They're working on that. Kelp comes from the ocean. And when you shampoo your hair and the TV commercial says, this shampoo's going to make your hair nice and shiny, sadly, that's because there's fish oil in the shampoo. They don't like to have a commercial that says, buy our shampoo and smell like a fish. So they don't really point out that there's fish oil in the shampoo. But what humans have been doing to the ocean is very bad. Okay, next month is Earth Day. And sadly, the reality is that right now, the Pacific Ocean, the largest ocean on the planet, we have dumped so much plastic and garbage into the ocean that if you pull it all together, it's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and it would be the size of the continental United States. 40% of all ocean-going birds have plastic in their bloodstream because they've eaten plastic off the top of the ocean. It's also 40% of the creatures. Sadly, there have been whales that washed up with bubble wrap around their lungs, suffocated because they took in a huge quantity of water full of plastic. So if you want to help save our planet, you want to reduce, refuse, and reuse. So you want to be able to try and reuse your shopping bags all the time, okay, with canvas, not with plastic. You want to try and buy laundry soap and other soaps that instead of a plastic container, you buy those sheets, they disintegrate, you're done, etc. And you want to reuse things as much as you can. And if you think, but does all this really matter? Little things make a big difference. When we go back to our shark before we wrap up, here's our shark jaw. Sometimes people have said to me, well, if all the sharks disappear, what's the big deal? Okay, everything on the earth has a purpose. If you eliminate the sharks, one of the things sharks eat are scallops. Okay. If you have too many scallops, the scallops eat all the algae. Algae makes oxygen in the water. There's no oxygen in the water, there's no life in the water. So you go from shark to scallop to algae, you pull a thread, and you start to pull apart the way the planet works. So I want to thank you all very much for having me here today. Sorry for our early technical difficulties. I have no idea why. And I'll try to get better about framing things well in the shot. Back to Anthony.
We're both still here, Gloria. So, yes, I've been researching. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. This is why it's called a soft launch. But wasn't there a really scary report on climate just a couple days ago?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at a tipping scale. The problem is that if we lose too much, and there's the thought that by 2036 we could have an ice-free summer at the Arctic, and the Arctic is all ice. The Antarctic is ice over land, and the problem with that is talking about. We already have flooding during non-tidal periods in Florida because the water's rising. We have islands going under in Alaska where we're moving people. So we have the rising water, and we also have the change in the drought and the snowfall and the rainfall because that ice on mountaintops feeds the springs in the summer. You don't have that, you're in trouble. And if you warm the ocean too much, you change the jet stream, and again, you're in trouble with the climate. So they've been saying we're at that tipping scale.
Yeah.
We have to, and every little, people say, oh, what does one person do? Every little tiny bit helps. I'll give you one last example. All the cruise ships, I happen to love cruising. I cruise next month. A little boy 10 years ago named Milo was in a McDonald's, and he wondered where the plastic straws go in McDonald's because they're not recyclable. And he figured out Americans alone throw away enough plastic straws to fill 360,000 school buses a year.
Wow.
And all those are going to last in the landfill over 30 years, decay, and be part of the water that we're drinking. So he started a campaign that said, drink out of the cup. And now it's caught on from one little... I mean, in the beginning, when I would say to people at the Applebee's, I don't need a straw, they looked at me like I was a communist. But it's getting better all the time. You could buy a reusable straw, you could drink out of the cup, you know? And now the cruise lines heard that, and a smallest cruise line, by eliminating the straws that they just automatically stuck in every cup, dropped 35,000 straws a day from the cruise lines. The end.
Wow.
Little things make a big difference.
Absolutely. I was reading, I was watching the Today Show while I was exercising, and Michaela Schiffer was on. She just set another, like a world, she set the all-time record for most wins, I think 87 downhill slaloms, and I forget if it was Carson Daly or one of the hosts kind of joked or that, that may be a record that holds for all time, through with glaciers melting and all that, and because you may not be able to get up and ski, and she was taken aback for a second, and then she said, before she answered the question about whether it would hold up over time, she actually went back and said, the glaciers are melting, and so it was an interesting moment. Well. We've definitely had people watching because I've been watching the feed count. We didn't have a whole lot of people asking any questions. If anybody has any questions for Gloria, speak now and forever hold your peace. But Gloria has been a great supporter of Sage Stream. We know we're going to have her back after this 16-week run. We're going to start taking subscriptions, and but then our promise is two performances a week, and for sure we'll have. There'll be a way on the website after you have a subscription to actually follow an artist, so you'll know when their performances are coming up, and you'll also have their whole archive when you go look at their profile. So all good things. So Gloria, I want to thank you for helping us out. I'm going to do some housework now and close the show, but you're free to go once I change the scene here.
All right, thank you, everybody, and thanks, Anthony. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Alrighty. So, next week, there's no photo there like we had of Gloria. There's a reason for that. It's because you have yours truly on the program next week. So I will be entertaining you. I'm doing 4 of the shows. This will be my second, and I'm going to do the very last 2. Typically, what I do is I will see what's going on next week, and essentially this huge book of observances that I have. And it may be some obscure day like National, Door Jam Month. I mean, there's a day for everything. And then I'll have to figure out a song to go for that. But in the meantime, if you have any requests for next week or shout-outs, you just let me know, and we'll make sure that we get them on for you. So the other thing is we're still in the middle of the bundle. So if you would like to still participate, maybe gift the bundles to someone else, you can still have time. We still got plenty of shows left, and a great amount of entertainers, including Phyllis Chappelle, named one of the top 500 jazz vocalists of all time. We have Dua Unio, my great violinist from the UK, Inez, and her piano partner, and Inez plays with the London Philharmonic. We've got Tony Lombardi. We got my mate George, a delightful guy from the UK. And so it goes like that. And it is what you make it on the other side by participating in the chat and telling us how we're doing. But you can also tell us how we're doing by using that QR code on the bottom left. That is a survey. It goes to SurveyMonkey. There's a bunch of questions. It's about how did we do. It's going to ask you about technology, whether it worked or not. It's going to ask you about the performance itself, the performer, how were they? Was there any, if you're in a community, how was it received by the residents? All that kind of stuff. So we want you to keep doing that, giving us good feedback, because that's how we'll get better at what we're doing. And on our end, we'll figure out what we need to do to make these performances better. So next week, it'll be Tuesday again, but it'll be at 2 p.m. This way we can get our folks in the UK covered at night. We can get our West Coast friends covered with a morning program, and our East Coast friends covered with the afternoon program. So until next week, everybody, enjoy the week. Here in North Carolina, it's supposed to finally get warmer. I think up into the upper 70s in the next few days. And that's great when you have an outdoor gig like I do on Saturday. It's always great to play outdoors when the weather's nice and not have to bring my little heat lamp to keep warm. All right. All right, folks. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.